Masayoshi's son was once the richest man in the world, at least for 3 whole days. Then, practically overnight, he lost 70 billion US dollars and faced financial and physical ruin. It was the biggest personal loss in modern history. Yet he prevailed until this day. The track record of this man is very impressive, to say the least. Once he convinced an investor to invest 45 billion US dollars in his vision fund within 45 minutes. He is also responsible for arguably the best investment of all time. He is known for his bold visions, his risky bets, and emotional ups and downs. But how did he become what he is today? As a child, he was often bullied, and as a result, he decided to become the richest man in Japan. While still in middle school, but unlike other kids with big ambitions his age, he gave absolutely everything to making his megalomaniacal dream come true. Early on, he idolized the Japanese businessman Dan Fushida, who brought McDonald's to Japan and made a fortune with it. Masayoshi's son spent hours calling Fushida's office, only to be turned away each time. So he decided to do what any normal 15-year-old would do. That is, flying to Tokyo without any further ado, because the cost of the phone was now higher than actual flight to Tokyo. Dan Fushida gave him a 15-minute talk in his office and advised him to consider the computer industry and to study in the USA. At the age of 16, he decided to leave his whole life behind and move to the United States without any preparation. Following the advice of his role model, he realized he couldn't even pay for the computer and finance studies at the University of California. But physical labor took him too long. He spent 5 minutes a day writing down inventions to sell as patents. After 250 ideas, he discarded them all to work on his best, a portable translation device that fits in your pocket. After numerous pitches, he sold the patent for his translator to Sharp for 1.7 million US dollars. He had made it at the age of 19. He was a millionaire. But that was not enough for him. As a next move, he imported credit-financed arcade machines into the USA. These were a massive hit, and after importing 350 of them, he made another million. Not wanting to rest on his success at such a young age, he used his small fortune as a foundation for something bigger, and after graduation, founded the software company SoftBank in Japan. He quickly burned through his money though, and had to take on a massive loan because he had no idea about software, and no one was interested in computers back in the 80s. But in the 90s, he was able to successfully take advantage of the computer boom, and SoftBank became profitable and quite a successful company. In the 90s, SoftBank made its first billion in sales, but the field of software distribution was not big enough for him. He started investing in other software companies. He threw millions into Yahoo, back when they were valued at 40 million US dollars. And after the IPO, a few months later, his investment was valued at 808 million US dollars. The business model now was to buy other companies. He was known to jump high millions without looking at any numbers, and after only a short conversation with the founders. Not every single investment had to work out for him, as long as only one of the companies he bought worked well enough to cover the rest of the losses. And that's exactly what happened in 2000, when he heard about the Chinese company Alibaba. But the owner, Jack Ma, didn't want to expand, nor did he want his money. Sun put his powers of persuasion to work and was finally allowed to invest $20 million, which later became an incredible $70 billion. In the same year, he invested in over 100 tech companies, but then everything collapsed and he lost in a short time $78 billion in private assets, the biggest loss of private wealth in history. If you think that would stop him, you don't know Masayoshi Son. He now had only crazier ideas with even more absurd methods. In 2007, he had another vision. He dreamed of phones with the capabilities of a computer and called Steve Jobs to tell him about his vision, only to learn that Apple was already working on the iPhone. So he wanted at least an exclusive contract to sell the phones in Japan. Steve Jobs laughed at his face and said, "You don't even own a phone company to sell them." So he took out another massive loan and bought Vodafone Japan for $20 billion. Aside from these ventures, Sun also talked a lot about his so-called 300-year vision, in which he listed that SoftBank would become a telepathy company, and that it would be possible to talk to dogs, as well as his visions of the singularity. He is known for often giving companies 10 times the investment they actually wanted, just to achieve extreme growth, which often leads to the companies losing sight of their initial goal and eventually collapsing. As a result, capital became scarce. He had a meeting with Jeff Bezos at the beginning of Amazon and wanted to be involved in Amazon's ventures. But all of his capital was already taken. So that this would never happen to him again, he had another absolutely megalomaniacal idea. The Vision Fund, a $100 billion fund freely at his disposal, 4 times larger than the largest fund at the time.
Supposed to be a fund of $100 billion?
Yes.
Now that would be the biggest fund ever raised. So when you told people you were going to raise a $100 billion fund, did they tell you you were a little crazy?
Well, some people said.
If you think to get 100 billion is absolutely impossible, you are probably right for most people, but not for Masayoshi fucking Son. So within a 45-minute conversation, he convinced the Saudi crown prince to invest 45 billion in him.
With a man who was the deputy crown prince of Saudi Arabia, who's now the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. And as I understand the story, you went in and in 1 hour you convinced him to invest $45 billion.
No, it's not true.
Okay?
45 minutes, $45 billion.
Okay, sorry.
And a little later, he had the $100 billion already together. With investments in TikTok, Uber, WeWork, Dice, Gelato at absurdly high prices, he lost an estimated 40 billion after 2 years. It remains to be seen whether the experts are right who consider the project to be insane inflation of tech values. After all, he is Masayoshi fucking Son.